Catus Maximus here, this time with a review of the Posi-Lock fixed jaw or captured jaw gear and pulley pullers. These are the two smallest models. They make all sorts of models, huge models. Posi-Lock is also not the only company that makes pullers that are like this, where the jaws are captured so that they hold securely. They're really easy to use. The one thing I'll mention about all pullers that are of this style is they all seem to be pretty expensive. Knockoff ones are pretty expensive, and high quality ones are super expensive. I think retail on both of these together was $80 or something. The next size up from this, the 105, is over $100 just by itself, and it just keeps climbing from there. So they do charge quite a bit of money for these style pullers. They're not the best for all situations, just because the cages are large, and so that may not allow you to fit in certain situations. And they are fidgety because of the way you have to thumb wheel out the forks or the fingers of the puller. We'll show that on the little one here. On these Posi-Locks, what I like is that they have a little ridge that really captures the jaw, so it doesn't want to fall in too easily. But you have to fiddle around with the little screw here to get it to tighten up. And that can take a little bit of time. Sometimes you get used to grabbing it like this and spinning it, and that sometimes makes it go a little faster. We'll show you guys how these work. I got that tightened down a little bit. So these are really good for odd shapes or situations where you don't have a super hard edge and where any kind of standard puller, the jaws just slip off. The nice thing about these is that they do press and hold on, kind of like a vise, not with a ton of force, but quite a bit of force. One thing to note about these pullers is in many situations you'll use these in where you really want the cage to hold the fingers on, and under tough pulling conditions. I've certainly read posts where people have broken the cages and had them suddenly released. So you have to be careful if you're using these under real high stress situations. I.e., this wouldn't be the type of puller to use where you have it's fully loaded and you're gonna about to strip out the threads and then hit it with a hammer. Definitely not for that. But it is great for all sorts of situations. Say we have something like this. This is just a fidget spinner as an example, but it has weird curves, and it's rounded this way too. So it's curved in two different directions, and a normal puller would have a difficult time trying to get a hold of or grab onto something like this. And so with this puller, you'd just be able to get the jaws. You would want to get them pretty tight. It's real easy on these to actually get the jaws too tight, and you can see where the hooks aren't actually grabbing. It's grabbing higher up on the jaws. That's one of the ways that you break the cage, is because you've actually got it too tight. So you want to make sure that you don't do that. It's really just for holding the jaws where they need to be and then keeping them adjusted. Now see, we have that just about perfect there. Then we can take and just screw down the lever. And on the bigger one, you just use a wrench. And then there we go. And what's real nice is everything's just held real securely. In a situation like this, if I were to pop out the center of this, it would pop out. And then the rest of this actually still remain caught in the fingers. So it's nicer that way, because like if you're pulling a gear, you don't pull the gear and then the puller falls apart and the gear hits the ground or something like that. And in situations where you're pushing something out with the puller stays there attached rather than falling off as soon as you're done with the operation. And as you can tell, me getting this thing set up on video, that was exponentially easier than trying to fiddle with a floating jaw puller with the little arms, trying to get this all set up and tensioned. It was just real simple. So these things have just been a lifesaver, particularly like when I rebuild power tools and pulling off some bearings. It just makes it a breeze. So that's why I recommend cage pullers, and I just happen to have Posi-Locks to review here. Anyway, I really appreciate everybody watching. Oh, let me give you a closer look at the larger one. The real small one here does use roll pins, and it's a pretty light duty puller. I may replace those with solid pins. But as soon as they get the larger ones, it's much more proper. They have a much heavier duty arm support, and they do use solid pins. The handle is also forged on the next size up, and I believe all sizes larger than the smallest one. And so that is something to know, is that the small one is made small and light and cheaply, but as soon as you get to any of the larger ones, these Posi-Locks dramatically increase their build quality and robustness. This one weighs more than twice as much. This is a 103, this is a 104, and just that one model difference, this thing probably weighs 3 times as much. So I did want to mention that too. And you can tell the jaws start getting really thick and wide. Anyway, thanks again for watching a Catus Maximus review. Please subscribe.